Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be the ultimate guide to glow. I love glow. I love glowy foundations. I love glowy blushes. I love glowy bronzers. I love everything to glow, to gleam, to be luminous, to be juicy. That's what I live for. I love the glow wherever it goes. So today I'm going to be sharing my top 3 in every glow category. We've got glowy foundations, glowy powders, glowy bronzers, glowy highlighters obviously, and glowy palettes. We've got something for everybody. I've even, especially for my cream lovers, I've even got a glowy cream product category. Okay, so don't say I never do anything for you. So there's a lot of glow to go over. So without further ado, let's get started. So we've got a lot of categories today. I've chosen my top 3 in each category, and just to forewarn you, there will not be any eye products. That is pretty much eye products and concealer is what I have left out of this little compilation of the best of glow. And I'll tell you why. When I say glow, I don't mean glitter. I don't mean sparkles. I don't mean shimmer. I mean glow, gloss, luminosity, radiance. I want it smooth, I want it silky, I want it looking like I've just had the most expensive, luxurious facial and I've been using all my retinol and all my SPF and my skin is just glowing and glistening like a goddess's, okay? I don't want sparkly, shimmery, glittery chonkiness. So eyeshadows, I feel like we've got a lot of sparkly, glittery, shimmery eyeshadows. Glow, it's a different vibe. It's a different category, in my opinion. And same thing goes for concealer. You can actually get glowy concealers, but I don't like them, okay? I'm 40 years old. I can't have radiance and luminosity under my eyes. It will make me look 60, okay? So that is a no-no for me. The one area of my life and my face where I want matteness is my under eye bags, okay? So no concealers, no eyeshadows, but every other category. And because I'm a powder girl, as you guys well know, I have done a separate creams category because otherwise there were going to be no creams or liquids, and that's unfair to you guys who love your creams and liquids. So I have included a separate creams section. So there's the housekeeping done. Finito, I think. Vaguely, but let's go in the order of which I feel makes sense. To me, we're starting off with the primers category. Now, typically, because I use very glowy foundations, I will go for a smoothing primer because, like I said, I'm 40 and I want smoothing, ironing out of the wrinkles and lines, of which, you know, I don't have them, but if I did, that's what I would be doing. So because I usually get enough glow from my go-to everyday foundations, I don't typically favor a glowy primer. But when I do favor a glowy primer is when I am using a more matte foundation, for whatever reason that might be. Typically matte foundations wear a bit better and they're a bit more transfer proof. It's a very long day or if it's an event, I tend to go for a more matte foundation so that longevity is there, so it doesn't transfer, so it doesn't look too shiny or glowy in photos if there's flash and a lot of lights. And then is when I reach for my glowy primers, or sometimes I just want extra glow. All the more glow, can never be too much. So my favorite has to be the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. I used this today underneath the Bobbi Brown foundation, which is a foundation that's a little more matte than my typical go-to taste for every day, and the result is glorious, glowy skin. It's so beautiful. It's a lot of these sort of glowy primers are not actually glowy enough when it comes to it, but this one from Charlotte Tilbury is absolutely the perfect amount of glow. You can even use this as a highlighter on top of foundation because it is so glowy. You're never going to put this on and be like, it's not glowy enough. It's Tin Man glowy, and underneath a light layer of foundation, you will absolutely still get lots of glow showing through, which a lot of the time I'm disappointed in these glowy primers because they're just not glowy enough. And once foundation goes over the top, you can't see any extra glow. That will never happen with the Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter. It's my favourite. Almost as glowy as that is the Dior, what's this called? The Forever Glow Star Filter. This is a fairly new one. It comes in a pump, whereas the Charlotte Tilbury has a doe foot. So I don't know if that may influence your decision between the two. They both have a good shade range. The Dior, I would say it's a hair less glowy than the Charlotte Tilbury, and I definitely find it a bit thicker. So again, it's a slightly different texture difference, but still plenty of glow that will still show through a light layer of foundation and give you the glow you so desire. If your foundation is a bit too matte, it's beautiful. Both of these mix gloriously with foundation or underneath or even on top if you want to use them as a highlighter and a real multitasking product. I love them both. And a slightly different option is the Tatcha Silk Canvas. This is the original, the solid version. They do have a liquid version as well. This is the original. And this is one that if I'm not really looking, I don't want really a highlighting effect or a real glow effect, but I also don't want to mattify my skin. This is more of a sort of very hydrating primer that you could use with a glowy foundation, and it's not going to make it even more glowy and it be Tin Man-y, but it isn't going to mattify anything. It gives you some smoothness, but it's more like hydrating skincare that's got a bit of a luminous. Do you see the difference? Way less glowy. So if you want something slightly less glowy, you just want some radiance to the skin and hydration to the skin. You don't want any mattifying from your primer, but you want a really great base for a foundation that's going to help keep the glow to it. This is a much more subtle little bit of luminosity and just hydration to the skin as opposed to a real highlighting primer like the other two. So next, let's move on to foundations. We'll start with the most obvious, okay? It's the Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate foundation. This is like my 5th bottle. I go through this like hotcakes. I use up at least 1, if not 2 bottles, depending on my shade each year. I've been using this and loving this. This has been my holy grail foundation for years, literally, and it's just never been beaten. It just has the perfect amount of glow from start to finish. So many foundations will start off perfectly glowy, but they get too glowy as they wear in, as the day goes on. And other foundations start off a bit more matte and throughout the day they get a bit more glowy. This one from Tom Ford starts off with the absolute sweetest spot of glow, but it stays exactly there until I take it off. It wears alarmingly well. For a more glowy foundation, it wears very well. I've never had any problems with its wear throughout a long trying day. I really reach for this the most in summer, but I love it all year round. It's got a medium coverage. It's really natural. It doesn't look dewy or wet or greasy. Reminder that this is like freshly applied, so it does slightly dry down. It's a little less glowy than this, but beautiful angelic skin. It's a medium coverage. You can still see your skin through. It looks uber natural, but like I said, just like you've had the most incredibly hydrating facial, but this is your own skin, that you're just the most gorgeous glowy goddess anyone has ever seen. It's my absolute dream foundation. I don't know if it will ever be beaten, but I hope it will, because it is very expensive. But luckily the other 2 options I have are significantly less expensive. So next up, it's the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin. Oh, I forgot about this foundation for a while. And I think it was just because a load of new foundations came out. And so I started using them and testing them and I forgot about this one. And when I rediscovered it, I instantly went back and put it straight back into my top drawer and was like, what was I doing? And then I purchased my summer shade because I was blown away by how beautiful it is. This is quite a divisive foundation. Again, it's a very similar finish to the Tom Ford. This one doesn't have SPF in it, whereas the Tom Ford has 50 SPF. The packaging in the Tom Ford is significantly more bougie, and obviously there's a wild price difference. Again, the texture, the Charlotte Tilbury is much thicker and it has a bit more coverage to it, and it's around the same level of glow, I would say, but no SPF, so you'd be safe to wear this in the evening if there's flash photography. So they are slightly different. This one does have a bit more coverage, but it still has that stunning glow and luminosity and fresh, juicy skin, which is exactly what I'm looking for, but it's maybe the heavier side of medium as far as the coverage goes. And lastly, but by no means leastly, the Haus Labs foundation. I was torn between the NARS and the Haus Labs. I went back and forth, back and forth. They're both neck and neck. The NARS has the most coverage, I think, of my glowy foundations. That's pretty much full coverage, that one. This one, I would say, again, it's a medium to full kind of coverage, super glowy, wears very well, again, for a glowier foundation, very natural, very skin-like. I think these two are quite similar, I would say, as far as the coverage, as far as the finish and the texture. This one is, again, thicker. The Tom Ford is very thin and watery, which I really like because it's really easy to control the coverage and it melts into the skin so easily. But that's not to say this doesn't. The Tom Ford is just the absolute sweet perfection, you know? But again, another gorgeous, so flattering, juicy, smooth, fresh, skin of dreams type of foundation. Not dewy, wet, shiny, doesn't get shinier throughout the day, wears beautifully, but just gives you the healthiest, most beautiful, luminous glow to the skin. Those are my three favorite glowy foundations. Not too much, not too little, just enough. So as I said, we're not doing concealers because I definitely don't want to shine a torch on my under eye situation. So we're moving on to powder next. And powder is not something I use very often because typically powder all over the face is designed to like mattify or set my glowy foundations. And I don't want to. I want them left thriving and glowy at their peak without changing the finish. I love the finish of those foundations. I don't want to set it down. I don't want to take away any luminosity. But I have found some powders that don't rob me of all my luminosity. So first up, it's the RMS Hydra powder. To give it its full name, oh, that is the full name. Hydra setting powder. Okay, I missed that one word. Sue me. I love the packaging of this because it's so neat and tidy. There's never any mess in here and it does exactly what you'd expect. Everything from the RMS Hydra line is beautifully glowy, isn't it, and luminous. And this powder, I think it's going to be quite hard for me to show you the finish of these powders because they are all sort of sheer translucent powders, but I think you can see that it does have this really subtle bit of luminosity, so it will slightly take away the glow of these foundations, but only the smallest amount, and it just gives you a bit more of a refined, elegant finish. It does not mess with the finish. It doesn't mattify you. It just leaves you with that beautiful but more set luminosity, if that makes sense. Like, I have categories of luminosity in my life, and there is like wet luminosity and then there's set luminosity. I don't know if that definition is going to make sense to anyone else, but it's like the difference between that sort of dewy, glowy, your skin looks wet, like you could have just got out of the shower, or there's the dry luminosity, which is like glow, but it looks set. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's what that RMS powder gives you. Next up, the Sisley powder. So I have the shade Irisee, and this is the Phyto Poudre Libre. And this is the glowiest powder I think I've ever discovered. And again, it sets your foundation. So if you have, you know, maybe a bit of oiliness come throughout the day. I should have said, by the way, I have a normal skin type, which is why I don't need to set my foundation typically. This sets very, very well, but it does have a gorgeous glow to the powder still. So it will set your foundation. It will help your foundation last longer if that's something that causes an issue, or reduce things like transfer and stuff like that. But it still gives you some luminosity back. You know, it's like a deal between the powder and the foundation. It's like, I'll set down some of this glow, but then I'm gonna glow. So that's the deal. And then finally, the Hourglass Veil setting powder. Another one with a really beautiful amount of luminosity. It just is so subtle. Probably, actually, I would say, having looked at them, this one is glowier than the Sisley, I think. This is a bit of a heavier powder, I find, than the Sisley or the RMS, but it's gorgeously luminous, really, really beautiful, and actually kind of adds a little bit of coverage almost. I wouldn't use any of these powders under the eyes because I do prefer a more matte powder under the eyes than these, but these, if I do want to set my foundation because it's going to be a really long day or for whatever reason, those three powders give me the maximum glow but help with longevity as well. So those are my three favorite powders that do not rob me of all of my gorgeous glow that I work so hard to get on my face. Next up, we have bronzes. So my three favorite glowy bronzers. First up, the Armani Luminous Silk. This is such a beautiful bronzer. It's absolutely gorgeous and it has the most beautiful little glow to it. It is quite warm. I have the shade 100 and it can be a little too warm. I've been trying to get another shade to see if we can get something a bit more neutral, which is my preference, but the glow in here is off the chart. It's stunning. Now, I know you guys are all going to know about the Hourglass cheek products, okay? Hourglass bronzers. I have many in palettes, but I'd never owned a single Hourglass bronzer, so I picked one up recently. This is the shade Diffused Bronze Light, and oh, it's so pretty. Definitely a bit glowier than the Armani and much more neutral when it comes to the shade as well, but the glowiest of the glowy bronzers has to be the RMS. This is the shade Tan Lines, and oh, she's just perfect. The glow in here, divine. There they all are a bit closer up. So we have the Armani, then the Hourglass, and then the RMS. And do you see how none of them are shimmery or sparkly or glittery? They are luminous, radiant, glowing, absolutely perfection. Moving on now to highlighters. Now, obviously this was tricky because I have a lot of highlighters and they all are glowy in some way, shape or form. What I tried to do here is pick my three favorite highlighters that give me glow and luminosity and radiance without being metallic, without shimmer, without too much glitter or sparkle or texture adding to the skin. My perfect highlighter is smooth, it melts into the skin, it fits my skin tone, it's not sitting on top of the skin, it's not leaving a cast or colour on the skin, it's just making me look like the light is just hitting my face perfectly. Do you know what I mean? So unfortunately, you may kill me, but all three of these highlighters are limited edition. However, before you come for my life, okay, I can't lie to you, these are my three favourites. I will just say, disclaimer, all three of these, well, two of the three, do resurface. One of them is just widely still available, you can get it, don't panic. One seems to be gone forever. The other one keeps getting restocked, okay, and that's this one. This is the McGrath Divine Rose highlighter. It's stunning. It was my holy grail highlighter for a very long time until the other two came along. It's just perfect for my skin tone, and it's probably at the more glowy end of like how I like my highlighters. It is quite glowy, but it's so smooth. It has that gelée formula that I love so much because it's so smooth and flattering. No texture to be seen, just looks like wet light hitting your skin. Your skin is glowy from your facial and the light is just hitting it. There's no cast, it melts into my skin. It's so pretty and it just reflects so beautifully. It has, you know, a lot of reflect, like here, very, very subtle. If you just hit the light, it reflects so beautifully. We then have the one that I think is going to be impossible to get now if you don't already own it. It's Chanel's Reve de Camelia. Look at the state of mine. This is how much I love this highlighter. I have so many, and yet this is what I've done to it. That's how much I love it. The special thing, as we have said about this highlighter a million times, is that it's almost completely void of base color. It's like shit. You see how much more that's just melted into my skin with barely. I just did 2 swatches there, and I slightly blended just back and forth to show you kind of how it would look on the skin. It's just, it doesn't have like a color as such. It's just luminosity. So I can wear this in summer and in winter, and it's not going to leave a cast. It's just going to melt with my skin tone and be seamless, and it's subtle and it's pretty, but it's the perfect amount of luminosity. I have included it because it's so special. And just as a warning, you know, Chanel highlighters are stunning. I think they are my favorite brand for highlighters. When they release things like that, they're almost always limited edition. And so it is, you have to take heed of it if you really desperately want it. Sometimes Chanel's limited edition, it will be gone, and apparently it never comes back. However, my third highlighter is the stunning coral shade of the Symbols collection highlighters. I mean, it's maybe even more beautiful than Reve de Camelia, and these you can still get in various places. Again, it was limited edition, but they definitely hung around and were a bit easier to get hold of than Reve de Camelia for longer. And it's a similar situation. It does have some color. It is a coral shade, but on my summer skin tone, it's just gone. It's melted in. I didn't blend this at all. I just did a swatch, and you can barely see. All you can see is just the most stunning, soft, pretty luminosity. It's so special. It's so beautiful. And I've got a lifetime supply, so that I'm grateful for. And I think that this is my absolute favorite, the coral shade. Very hard to choose between that and Reve de Camelia because they're both so special, but they're glorious. In winter as well, the coral shade kind of becomes like a blush as well on me. I get a bit of coral color to the skin, so it's kind of like quite a versatile product that in summer it's just, you know, a traditional highlighter. In winter gives me a bit of a blush too. Bang for your buck, we love to see it. Now moving on to blushes, again, Chanel, they just know how to do the glow. This is the shade Elegance, and it's my favorite ever Chanel blush. I think this is the original sort of baked formula. I'm confused as to what's going on. I know in the US the baked formula was like discontinued, I think, and they replaced it. I think that's right, they reformulated their blushes. Here we still have this like widely available, so I don't really know what's going on with it, but I hope we still get it because just look at that glow. The shade is stunning anyway. It's one of my favorite blushes, but the finish of Chanel blushes are so gorgeous. They do have different finishes. I think they have more matte blushes, but typically the blushes that come in their palettes and their duos and things that they do for limited edition are also always this stunning, elegant gleam to them. They're not sparkly and shimmery. Once you blend them on the cheeks, they just look so glowy and luminous in the most beautiful way. They are stunning. Very similar vibes to the Hourglass blushes. I need them to bring back the strobe blushes. Why have they discontinued those? There are some shades I still want that I can't get now. They've gone. So give them back. What happened? We love them. But this is the ambient lighting blush formula. This is the shade At Night. And I think this is my favorite. Again, it's quite a neutral blush. It's not quite as glowy as the Chanel Elegance. I will say it's a bit more muted. It is that ambient lighting formula as opposed to the strobe lighting formula, but it's elegant, soft luminosity that just makes your skin just look so healthy and youthful and alive. And then finally, this cheeky number that I've been speaking about a lot lately, it's the Sisley L'orchidee blushes. Of course, they are an unhinged amount of money, but to me, I mean, let me just, again, disclaimer, I paid half price for the 2 shades that I picked up, but I regret nothing. They are absolutely stunning. I think they're the most subtle and smoothest of the 3. The Chanel definitely has some sort of flecks of shimmer in there. The Hourglass is a bit more towards luminous, and the Sisley is like the ultimate amount of luminosity with no flecks, no sparkle, no shimmer, no nothing, no glitter to be seen, just smooth radiance. Again, here they are: Chanel Elegance, Hourglass at Night, Sisley L'orchidee number 1. And I think you can just see the Chanel is more shimmery, and we kind of get more subtle as we go down. Just stunning. So now it comes to the palettes category. I decided to include my top 3 palettes, but take it with a slight pinch of salt, because some of these were kind of hard to pick the palette, and it's more so a brand. Does that make sense? Probably not. We move on if you can. First up, it's the Hourglass Holiday palettes, packed, rammed full with glow. And the reason I say to take it with a pinch of salt, because depending on where my skin tone's at and the colours I want to use and the vibe, it's not necessarily this palette. I think Tiger is my current favourite, and a lot of that is just to do with the blush shades in here, but also this highlighter that's in this palette is right up my street. It's a bit more understated as far as a highlighter goes, and again, one of the blushes in here, this one down here, it's just so pretty. And they have a range, you know, usually they have a bit more of a subtle highlighter and a bit more of a gleaming highlighter. They've got more gleaming blush and then a more subtly luminous blush. Also, the bronzer in there typically has some level of luminosity. These palettes are just a glowy girl's dream. Which one you want to purchase when they come out each year will widely depend on your skin tone, but this is one of my all-time favorites. You can put everything in here on your cheeks and you will glow to the heavens. You will never look too sparkly or shimmery. It will look stunningly, radiantly, gloriously lit from within, like the day you were born. I don't know if you were luminous on the day you were born, but I know that I was glowing throughout the maternity wing. I was actually born at home, so I never entered a maternity wing, but the light was pouring from the windows on that day. One of my all-time favorite but very underrated face palettes, and this was limited edition, but again, it has returned intermittently, so I think if you really wanted to find it, wait a while, it will probably be back, or you maybe have to grab it from somewhere. But this is Charlotte Tilbury's Nudegasm, and again, these come out, these face palettes, in various different shades and various different varieties pretty much each year. She does cheek palettes like this. Sometimes it's just blush and highlighter. This one has contour powders in it, so they're always a little different. The Lightgasm palettes are another one. They are always so beautiful. I used the blush and the contour powders from this palette today. This blush is one of my all-time favorite blushes. It's the perfect sheeny, delectable peach. And you know Charlotte Tilbury can do glow. She's got so many products in here. It's very clear. Charlotte Tilbury, queen of glow. Everything, all of her products are beautiful, luminous, glowy, gloriousness. That's her vibe. Glowing goddess is very much Charlotte Tilbury's aesthetic. And so these palettes, they're just always full of the prettiest, glowiest products. This highlighter in here as well. Just look at that. These bottom 3 swatches are from the Hourglass palette, and then these top 2 are the Charlotte Tilbury. Oh, delightful. And then in third slot for the palettes, a slightly different type of product, but from Chanel. These have just really been tickling my pickle lately. I absolutely love them. It's so beautiful, the combination of the more subtly luminous blush and bronzer, and then that gorgeous highlighter. I've put this on a wet hand, but you get the vibe. This is the shade medium rose gold, and this I think is the glowier of the two. I also have medium coral, but the blush in here is glowy, whereas the blush in the medium coral is more of a like satin, even maybe even a matte, whereas the blush in the medium rose gold has a lot of reflect, and it's just so flipping pretty. The effect of these three all applied on the skin together is alarmingly beautiful. No sparkle, no glitter, no shimmer, just this most stunning, elegant glow. So next we move to the cream products. Now, of course, I had to include a wand from Charlotte Tilbury, and I really could have included very many of them. I have a lot of these wands, and I think I've included the original because it's probably the most versatile skin tone wise for everybody, because it's so flipping pretty, but it can be used very sheerly. Again, I'm just looking, and you don't see glitter, you just see the absolute peak amount of glow, and you really can sheer this out so it will work on a lot of skin tones, but it's just the most glossy skin, glow and light and reflection, so pretty. And for a liquid, so easy to use. You can easily apply this on top of foundation and then go in with powder products, and it will just blend and melt delightfully well. And these wands from Charlotte Tilbury wear so well as well for liquids. They really have a lot of staying power. Next up, these Dior, what are they called? Glow Maximizers. My favorite, the Peachy shade, because this can be a blush, this can be a highlight, it can be a 2-for-1. And again, it's so juicy, this formula. It's really juicy skin. Again, if you're slightly deeper skin tone than me, this could be just a highlight. If you're fairer, this will very much be a blush. On me, it's a very subtle blush if I build it up. Otherwise, just a highlighter. But do you see how it just looks wet, like glow, like just the most moisturized, stunning skin. It's so smooth as well and gleaming. I can't get enough. And then something new to me and slightly less glowy, but equally glorious, these new Hourglass blushes. If you want something that's glowy, but it's not as intense as the Charlotte Tilbury ones or those Dior Luminizers, the Hourglass is much more of an understated glow, much more subtle, much more natural of an amount of glow. Really beautiful, natural luminosity to them, quite sheer, more forgiving, easy to use, very buildable, very beautiful on the skin. It just looks really fresh, healthy skin. Gorgeous glow, but not sort of dewiness. Again, no shimmer, no glitter, no sparkle. Very flattering for mature skin. Those are one of my favorite products of the year. The finish is juicy and divine. And we come to the final category, which is lip products. And here again, I'm not looking for glitter or shimmer in my lip products. I'm looking for juice. I'm looking for glow, luminosity. You know, I want them to look juicy and kissable. Starting off with the juicy goodness I have on my lips right now. These are the new Balm Embraces from Lisa Eldridge. This is the shade Sweet Fig. I think it's my favorite. These are just so good for summer because they're really sheer and easygoing, but they have this beautiful jelly finish. They're so juicy and glossy without being sticky, and while having a really good amount of wear to them. They're not like long wearing like a matte lipstick, but they don't disappear straight off your face in 10 minutes. They are so juicy. They just feel delightful on the lips, very hydrating, very comfortable, and a really easygoing amount of pigmentation. Kind of the other end of the spectrum, the Candy Glazes from YSL. These are insanely glossy. I don't even know how they do it, but mega pigmented. You see the difference? You see the difference. This is the shade 14. These are highly pigmented, so flipping glass-like shiny. I don't even know what to do with myself. They are unbelievably beautiful and glossy on the lips. And then finally, my favorites of all, the Dior Addicts. This is the shade, I have to find it, Nude Mitza. This is one of the newer shades and it's my absolute perfect nude. And this is like slap bang in the middle. We've got something quite sheer and natural and easygoing and balm-like. Then we've got something that is really opaque and intense and pigmented. And then the Dior Addicts are slap bang in the middle of the two. They're as shiny as the Lisa Eldridge, but they aren't so jelly-like and they do have more pigmentation to them. They're right in the middle. So you've got three options depending on how much pigmentation and colour you want. So we have Lisa Eldridge Sweet Fig, we've got the Candy Glaze shade 14, and then we have Dior Addict Nude Mitza. What a divine trio. Whew. And there you have it. That is my complete glow guide 2024, the top 3 in every glowing category. I beg you to share your favourite glowing products in the comment section down below. What are your favourite glowy foundations, glowy bronzers, glowy blushes? Tell us your favourites in the comment section down below. Let's have a glow party, okay? Who doesn't want to attend that? I know I do. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye, 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 bye.